and welcome back. Would you by chance care to have a cup of mystery tea with me? No? More for me? It was almost peaceful. Not a sound but the crickets chirping and critters roaming. Then suddenly, the sound of desperate pattering quickly across the ground. The crunching of snow beneath feet. A young teenager ran, but from what exactly? Just then, thunderous footsteps thundering behind. A monstrous creature seen, slender limbs, scrawny waist, jagged teeth, and a deer's skull. The teenager was now backed into a corner. The creature let out an echoey screech that echoed through the forest. A scream rips through the night, but remains unheard. An investigation team pulls up to a wintry forest, grabbing cameras and different kinds of equipment. They had received a call for investigation about an odd creature. The team begins wandering into the woods, camera in hand. They walk slowly into the woods, documenting the scenery and animals. Some rabbits hop around peacefully, gnawing at grass that's stuck out. A large branch snaps, and the forest goes silent. The rabbit that was peacefully eating darts off in a hurry, confusing the researchers. An echoey cry is heard, startling the team as they look around. A deer corpse plops onto the ground in front of them. A few investigators step back, slightly startled. Giant footsteps began to approach rapidly. A creature emerged, but it was no deer. It was scrawny and had a skull on its head. Its teeth were jagged and bloody. It let out that same echoey cry and snatched up one of the men, making him scream out as it tore him apart. The others took off running in different directions in fear of their life. A man was grabbed by the leg and dragged down a different path with a scream. A man runs for the trucks when suddenly he's grabbed, falling over. His camera glitches out and cuts off. The footage later that day was recovered and looked through over and over, yet the team investigating was not able to come up with what kind of creature it could be. Still nothing has been figured out. It's too big to be a bear, and it has antlers like a deer. What kind of beast is this? You ever heard of a Wendigo? The Wendigo? Seriously. It's probably some rabid elk or something. No elk holds that kind of power. They were shooting the thing, too. That only seemed to anger it. Though the Wendigo is not a thing to be messed with. Yeah, right. You know what I think? What do you think, sir? I think it's just some phony tale meant to scare teens and little kids. There's no way such a ridiculous thing exists. The Wendigo will make you believe, sir. You may not see it now, but that was a warning. We can't go back there. We will get out there ourselves, and we will investigate every last bit until we can figure out what's happening in that hellhole of a forest. You got that? Or are you not suited for this job? I understand, sir. Good. Now gather everyone. We have a creature to hunt, as it is clear of a danger to the community. Later that night, they settled out into the forest, cameras and night vision ready. Alright, here's the place. Now let's see what kind of weird creature this is. A twig suddenly snaps, making everyone freeze, tense, and ready to fight. A rabbit hops out of a bush. Look at that, just a little creature. The rabbit suddenly runs off, frightened. Sir, I think we should leave. We are not leaving. We have a creature to eradicate. I can't do this anymore. I'm not staying and risking my life. I quit. The investigator then walked off without a word. Whatever, let's begin, boys. A giant and hungry beast stood before them. A man cocked their gun only to scream as his arm was snapped clean off. Men ran and some shot. A man was snagged and chewed on viciously, screaming as he lost blood from the damage he was taking. Another man was swiped, his windpipe crushed beneath its hoof. The commander's men dropped like flies. He stood wide-eyed as he faced the very beast he proclaimed to be fake. He let out a scream as the creature tackled him. He struggled beneath it, losing the grip on his tranq gun he had in case of emergency. He screamed as he was chewed apart. From then on, that forest was forbidden to be entered, and was closed off to the community. Every once in a while, a foolish teenager went missing, and everyone blamed the forest. A young man invited a group of people to an Airbnb party. They drove out a few miles to a forest filled with winter frost. They all settled in their rooms and waited for dinner to be prepared. As the night went on, they ate dinner quietly, when a guy challenged the man that he couldn't beat him in a race out in the forest. The man accepted, and they put on their coats, gloves, and shoes, and then raced on. Started at the entrance of the forest. They stood until the count of 3. The young man took off at a great speed, the man that challenged him way behind. The young man figured he would win the race. Suddenly the sound of feet behind him stopped. He figured the guy was out of breath and kept running before he decided to suddenly stop. He turned around and then realized no one was behind him. He called out, but no one had answered. Realizing he was completely alone, he rushed off to look for shelter, but had no luck. While roaming around in the frosty wonderland of a forest for hours, he spent hours calling out for anyone. He spent hours looking for somewhere warm to stay. He soon found himself completely lost. He huddled down into the snow, trying to conserve some warmth. It had been hours since he had a meal, and his stomach growled. He huddled up under a nearby tree to keep warm. Night hit, and he failed to keep proper warmth, shivering in the snow. His stomach growling for food didn't help. It would only be a few days of suffering for the man that went by, when people went out hiking in the same trail he lost himself in. Just not far from him, people arrived, noticing him freezing in the setting sun. A man offers to help him, but instead of accepting the help, he sinks his teeth into the man, biting and chewing, causing the man to scream, freaking out the others. The others fled for their lives as the freezing and malnourished man fed on the innocent helper. As he fed on, his body changed limbs, and his limbs grew. His skin changed, representing that of thin and matted fur. His eyes sunk back a little further, now an eerie red. Antlers began to erupt from the man's head. As the beast-turned man finished his feast, he finds to enjoy the taste of bone, flesh, and blood. He then flees off into the night with incredible speed. The beast of a man ran through the wintry forest, free as a bird. Day by day, he would attack hikers, feasting on those who failed to escape. One night would be his end, though. He snuck up on 2 unsuspecting hikers. He lunged, attacking the smaller one, chewing on their leg, when another shot off his shotgun. The noise hurting the beast-turned man's ears, making him screech before he was shot in the chest. The hiker emptied a few more shells within the beast before ensuring he was defeated. Later than on, the remains of the Wendigo were set in a zoo exhibit to be viewed by all. 5 guests were invited to a tea party by a very kind and well-dressed hostess. As everyone gathered into a room, there were teacups filled with purple tea. The hostess explained it was a special herb that she and her family grew for generations. She lifted her cup and sipped gracefully, a smile never leaving her joyful face. Everyone else slowly lifted their cups, each taking sips. Their faces lit up at the taste of the herb. It was very sweet, like that of a dessert. One by one, each of them took sips of their tea. Everyone was chatting and having a good time when someone started to choke and convulse in their seat, foam coming from their mouth before they fell still. The crowd fell into a panic before they could move, though. Chains had attached to the ankles, keeping them rooted to their chairs. The hostess simply snickered, sipping her tea. "If you seek to leave, my dears, you must complete my game of tea roulette. Only one person may make it out alive, especially if you can beat me. The last survivor will compete against me," said the hostess. "You're that one woman everyone has been on the lookout for," said someone.
"I don't know what you mean, my dear," said the hostess.
"Don't play coy. You're the one woman everyone's been looking for. You're Miss Mad Hatter," the person assured. The hostess stared in bewilderment before laughing.
"You've caught me. Now, shall we let the games begin?"
4 cups of tea were placed around the 4 remaining guests.
"Now, you will keep passing your teacups around until you believe yours isn't one with poison. If you guess wrong, then, well, it's obvious what the consequences are."
They passed their teacups around in a circle for a few minutes before they stopped, all taking a huge gulp of their tea. Nothing happened for a few minutes before someone began to choke and struggle before falling still. Fear struck through the 3 survivors.
"Round 3, good luck, you'll need it."
They passed their cups round and round again before stopping. They all took a gulp of tea. They sat sweating profusely as they waited to see who would drop next. Just then a person on the right began to choke and writhe in their chair before soon succumbing to poison. It was down to 2 survivors. They passed their cups back and forth over and over before stopping. One hesitated from drinking their tea. "Drink your tea." "I don't want to." "Just get this over with. I don't want to be here any longer." "I can't. I don't." Just then a gun went off, and the survivor slumped in their chair, a wound in their head.
"Would you look at that? You're all that is left."
She poured 2 cups of tea, pouring a few drops of poison in one before mixing them around.
"Choose your cup, dear."
The survivors sweat as they chose the cup on the left. The hostess, filled with confidence, picks up the other cup. They both take a gulp of their tea. They sat for a few minutes before the hostess began to laugh manically, before she began to suddenly choke. Her eyes widened at her defeat, the key falling from her hand on the table. She gasped and choked before falling still. The survivor took the key and unchained themselves, running out of the building, never looking back once.